Lieutenant Commander Kelly Hayes stepped off the transport shuttle and onto the deck of Crimson Fang Station. The air felt different here, thicker. It carried the scent of something sharp and metallic that made her instincts prickle. Around her, beings twice her size moved through the corridors with predatory grace. Their eyes tracked her movement with the kind of attention a wolf gives to something small and unfamiliar. She had been warned. The Galactic Predator Council did not welcome outsiders easily. For 3,000 years, they had ruled their corner of the galaxy through strength and hunting prowess. Only species that proved themselves as apex predators earned seats at their table. Herbivores were beneath their notice. Omnivores like humans were viewed with suspicion and barely concealed disgust. "You keep prey animals as companions," Highclaw had said during her initial interview. His reptilian face had twisted with something between confusion and contempt. "You feed them, protect them. This is not the behavior of hunters." Kelly had tried to explain about dogs and cats, about the bonds humans formed with other species, had simply stared at her with his cold, golden eyes and dismissed her explanation as weakness. But he had approved her assignment anyway. 6 months on Crimson Fang Station as a cultural liaison. 6 months to prove that humans deserved consideration for council membership. She dragged her equipment case through the diplomatic quarter, following the markers on the walls. Her assigned quarters were small but functional. Through the viewport, she could see the purple nebula that gave the station its name. It looked like a wound in space, bleeding color into the darkness. Her neighbors arrived within the hour. There were reptilian species, all scales and teeth and eyes that could track movement in near darkness. The family living next door consisted of 2 adults and 3 cubs. The father stood nearly 7 feet tall with scales the color of dried blood. His mate was slightly smaller but no less intimidating. Their cubs peered around their legs with bright, curious eyes. "You are the human," said. It was not a question. "Kelly Hayes," she replied, extending her hand in the human gesture of greeting. Stared at her hand for a long moment before touching it briefly with one clawed finger. His skin felt cool and dry like touching stone. "My cubs will not bother you. I have instructed them to keep distance from your quarters." "They're welcome to visit," Kelly said. "I don't mind children." Made a sound in her throat that might have been surprise or disapproval. "Cubs are not like your human young. They have teeth, claws. The instinct to hunt is strong even when small." "I understand," Kelly said, though she wondered if they understood how resilient human children could be. She had grown up with 2 younger brothers who had put her through more roughhousing than these cubs probably managed in a year. The first week passed slowly. Kelly attended briefings on council protocols and predator culture. She learned which gestures meant respect and which meant challenge. She discovered that turning her back on someone was seen as either a grave insult or a sign of complete trust, depending on context. The line between the two was razor thin. The cubs watched her from a distance at first. She would see them peering around corners or hiding behind their parents when she passed in the corridor. The youngest had scales that still held a bluish tint of infancy. The middle cub was all energy and sharp little teeth. The oldest tried to act tough but could not quite hide his curiosity about the strange human. Kelly started leaving her door open when she was home. She would sit near the entrance, reading reports or preparing presentations. Eventually, the cubs crept closer, first to the doorway, then just inside, then after 2 weeks gathered enough courage to ask a question. "Why do you have no scales?" His voice was high and clicking, the universal translator rendering it into something like a child's lisp. "Humans have skin instead," Kelly said, holding out her arm. "See, it's soft, but it's strong enough." All 3 cubs crowded closer, their parents watching from the corridor with expressions Kelly could not read. Touched Kelly's arm with one claw, gentle despite the sharpness. "You would tear so easily." "Humans are tougher than we look," Kelly said. "We might not have scales or claws, but we're hard to kill." Tilted his head, his neck frills flaring slightly. "Are humans predators? Father says your species hunts, but also grows food like prey animals do." "We do both," Kelly said. "Humans learn to hunt and to farm, we're adaptable." "That sounds like cheating," said, and Kelly laughed despite herself. The cubs became regular visitors after that. They would come to her quarters after their lessons, asking endless questions about Earth and humans. Kelly told them about oceans and mountains, about cities that stretched toward the sky. She taught them simple games, though she had to modify the rules since the cubs were stronger and faster than human children. and seemed uncertain about the arrangement at first, but they did not forbid it. Other families in the diplomatic quarter began to watch with interest. A human playing with predator cubs. It was unusual, perhaps even inappropriate by their standards, but the cubs were happy and unharmed. Kelly's official duties were less successful. She gave presentations to various council subcommittees about human culture and capabilities. Most representatives listened with barely concealed boredom. Some asked questions clearly designed to expose human weakness. How could a species without natural weapons claim to be hunters? Why should the council consider membership for beings who formed emotional attachments to prey animals? Your kind keeps cattle and then weeps when you must slaughter them, said a delegate from the Empire, a feline species with silver fur and cold blue eyes. This is not the nature of predators. Humans understand the cost of survival, Kelly replied carefully. We take life when we must, but we don't celebrate unnecessary cruelty. That's not weakness, it's discipline. The delegate had simply laughed, a sound like breaking glass. 3 months into her assignment, Kelly started noticing problems. Small things at first. Her personal items moved when she was certain she had left them elsewhere. Documents missing from her, then reappearing days later. Messages that should have reached Earth taking weeks to transmit when they should have taken hours. She reported the incidents to station security. The officer who took her statement was a massive being from a species she did not recognize, all muscle and bone plating. He listened to her concerns with obvious disinterest. You are in the diplomatic quarter, he said. No one enters without authorization. Then someone has authorization who shouldn't, Kelly said. Or perhaps you are not accustomed to living among true predators, the officer replied. Perhaps you feel threatened when there is no threat. This is common among prey species. Kelly bit back her first response. Getting angry would only confirm their assumptions about human emotional instability. Instead, she thanked him and left, knowing the report would go nowhere. The sabotage grew bolder. Someone accessed her quarters while she was at a briefing and destroyed 3 months of research notes. Another time, her environmental controls were tampered with, flooding her quarters with air so cold she woke up shivering and struggling to breathe. When she tried to investigate, she found the security footage had been corrupted. Kelly started keeping the most important data on isolated chips she carried with her at all times. She slept lighter, waking at the smallest sounds. The stress wore on her, but she refused to request a transfer. That would be admitting defeat, proving she could not handle life among predators. The cubs noticed the change in her mood. Are you sick? Asked one evening, his small voice concerned. You smell different, worried. Kelly forced a smile. Just tired, little one, nothing for you to worry about. But was old enough to understand more than his siblings. Someone is being cruel to you. I have heard my parents talk. There are those on the station who do not want humans here. I know, Kelly said quietly, but I'm not leaving. Your people are worth getting to know, even if some of them don't want to know me back. Climbed into Kelly's lap, something she had started doing despite her mother's disapproval. The cub was getting big, nearly 40 pounds of scale and muscle, but Kelly did not mind. You are brave, said, like a real hunter. Kelly hugged the cub carefully, mindful of her sharp edges. Thank you, sweet girl. That means more than you know. 2 weeks later, Station Commander announced a major diplomatic gathering. All species currently under evaluation for council membership would present their cases. The High Claws themselves would attend, along with representatives from every major predator species in the Alliance. It was the opportunity Kelly had been waiting for, a chance to address the entire council leadership at once. She prepared her presentation carefully, focusing on human persistence hunting and cooperative tactics. She gathered footage of Earth's apex predators, showing the diversity of hunting strategies humans had learned from and adapted. She practiced her delivery until she could recite it in her sleep. The night before the gathering, the cubs came to her quarters more excited than she had ever seen them. Our parents are bringing us to watch, said, his frills fully extended with joy. We will see you speak to the High Claws. The central plaza of Crimson Fang Station had been transformed overnight. Banners representing every council species hung from the vaulted ceiling, their colors bright against the dark metal walls. Seating areas formed concentric circles around a raised platform where speakers would present their cases. Above it all, a gallery ran along the upper level where civilians could observe the proceedings. Kelly arrived early, her presentation materials loaded on a data chip in her pocket. She wore her formal dress uniform, navy blue with gold trim and the insignia of Earth's diplomatic corps on her shoulders. Around her, beings of dozens of species took their positions. Most towered over her. Their differences were striking. Some had fur, others scales, still others skin like living stone. But they all shared one thing: they moved like hunters. Every gesture was controlled, efficient, built on generations of predatory instinct. High Claw entered through the main archway, and the room fell silent. He stood nearly 9 feet tall, his scales deep crimson with age, his eyes sharp despite his years. Behind him came the rest of the High Claws, the ruling council of the Predator Alliance. Each one represented a species that had proven itself through strength and dominance. They took their seats on the elevated dais, looking down at the assembled crowd like judges passing sentence. The ceremony began with traditional rituals. Species representatives came forward to make formal greetings in their ancestral languages. Kelly recognized some of the words from her studies, but most were sounds no human throat could make. Growls and chirps and clicking that the universal translators turned into phrases about honor and strength and the glory of the hunt. When her turn came, Kelly stepped onto the platform. She could feel hundreds of eyes on her, evaluating every movement. She bowed in the formal style she had practiced, holding the position for exactly 3 heartbeats before rising. "Honored High Claws," she began, her voice steady despite her nerves. "I come before you representing humanity, a young species seeking understanding and partnership. We do not claim to be the strongest or the fastest, but we bring something valuable to any alliance: persistence, adaptability, the willingness to stand alongside our allies no matter the cost." She activated the display, showing images of Earth's predators. Lions working together to bring down prey 5 times their size. Wolves coordinating hunts across miles of territory. Orcas teaching their young specialized hunting techniques passed down through generations. "These are not human hunters," Kelly said, "but they are our teachers. Humans learned by watching, by adapting, by taking the best strategies from nature and making them our own. We became persistence predators. We ran our prey to exhaustion over days. We worked in groups, communicating and planning. We used tools to overcome our physical limitations." A delegate from the Empire stood, his silver fur catching the light. "You speak of the past, but your kind has grown soft. You build cities and farms, you live in comfort far from the hunt." Kelly had expected this challenge. "We build cities because we are good at it. We farm because we are efficient, but make no mistake. Humans have not forgotten how to hunt. We carry that instinct in our bones. We simply choose when to use it." "Choice is not the nature of predators," the delegate said coldly. "Predators hunt because they must. It is what we are." "Then humans are something more," Kelly replied, and she heard several sharp intakes of breath around the room. "We are predators who choose our prey, who decide when mercy is stronger than violence. That takes more discipline than simply following instinct." The murmurs grew louder, some angry, some thoughtful. Kelly pressed on with her presentation, showing human achievements in exploration and cooperation. She spoke about Earth's history, careful not to hide the violence but framing it as proof of human survival capability. In the gallery above, she could see the cubs watching, had his small claws gripping the railing, was practically bouncing with excitement, sat between his parents, his blue-tinged scales bright under the lights. Kelly smiled up at them briefly before returning her attention to the council. She was halfway through explaining human-pack bonding when the first explosion hit. The sound was deafening, a crack of thunder that shook the entire plaza. The display screen behind Kelly shattered, spraying fragments across the platform. She dropped into a crouch on pure instinct, her military training overriding everything else. Around her, delegates were shouting, some running for the exits, others drawing weapons that Kelly had not realized they were carrying. The second explosion came from the eastern wall. Metal groaned and tore, and a section of the gallery support gave way with a shriek of tortured alloy. Kelly looked up in time to see beings falling from the upper level, their screams cutting through the chaos. Someone grabbed her arm, a security officer, his face grim. "Move now, this is a coordinated attack." But Kelly was not looking at him. She was looking at the gallery directly above the platform, the section where families had been watching, where the cubs had been sitting with their parents. The third explosion took out the support beam beneath that section. Kelly watched it happen in slow motion. The beam cracked, metal screaming as it bent under the sudden shift in weight. The floor of the gallery tilted and beings scrambled for purchase. Had his arms around, both of them trying to reach their cubs, but debris was falling between them, cutting them off, and slid toward the edge as the floor gave way beneath them. Kelly did not think. Her body simply moved. She sprinted toward the collapsing section, her legs pumping harder than they had since basic training. Around her, others were running away from the danger. She ran toward it. The cubs were screaming now, high-pitched sounds of terror that cut through every other noise. Caught the edge of the tilted floor, her small claws scrabbling for grip. Grabbed his sister with one hand and with the other, but he was sliding too, unable to hold them and himself. Above them, a massive support beam tore free from its moorings. It fell in a lazy arc, tumbling end over end. Kelly's mind calculated trajectory, speed, impact point. The beam would hit exactly where the cubs were clinging. They would be crushed, dead in seconds. She reached them as the beam fell. No time to pull them to safety. No time to think of a better plan. Kelly grabbed all three cubs in her arms, feeling their small bodies press against her chest. She twisted, putting her back to the falling beam, and threw herself forward with every ounce of strength she had. The cubs flew from her arms, tumbling across the stable section of floor. Safe, clear of the impact zone. The beam hit Kelly like a hammer from heaven. Pain exploded across her back and shoulder. She felt something tear inside her body, something vital and important. The world tilted sideways and she was falling, but she could not remember why. There were sounds, distant and muffled, like hearing voices underwater. Someone was screaming her name, but she could not place the voice. More debris rained down. Kelly could not move. Her body refused to obey her commands. Something heavy landed on her leg. Something sharp cut across her ribs. She tasted blood in her mouth and wondered distantly if she had bitten her tongue. Through blurring vision, she saw movement. Small shapes, blue-tinged scales, the cubs. They were crawling toward her, crying, trying to reach her. Good, they were alive. That was what mattered. Kelly tried to tell them to run to get to safety, but her voice would not work. More debris was falling. She could hear it crashing down around them. With the last of her strength, Kelly pulled her arms over her head and rolled slightly, creating a small shelter with her body. The cubs huddled beneath her. She could feel them shaking, hear their frightened whimpers. Something else fell, striking her back, and fresh agony lanced through her. Kelly bit down on a scream, not wanting to frighten the cubs more than they already were. Darkness crept in at the edges of her vision. She fought it, knowing that if she passed out, she might never wake up. Had to stay conscious. Had to keep the cubs safe until help arrived. Had to hold on. But her body had other ideas. The pain was fading now, replaced by a cold numbness that spread from her core outward. That was bad. She knew enough field medicine to understand what that meant. Shock, blood loss, organ damage. Someone was shouting orders nearby, running footsteps, the sound of rubble being moved. Good. The rescue teams were coming. The cubs would be fine. Kelly let her eyes close, just for a moment, just to rest. The last thing she felt was small claws gripping her uniform, holding on tight. The last thing she heard was voice, high and broken with fear, saying words her translator turned into something like, "Please don't leave us." Then the darkness took her, and Kelly Hayes knew nothing at all. When the rescue teams reached the platform, they found a scene that would be recorded and analyzed for years to come. The human lay motionless beneath tons of debris, her body torn and bleeding from dozens of wounds. Beneath her, protected by her arms and torso, three cubs huddled together, frightened but alive, completely unharmed. The cubs refused to move, even when their parents finally fought through the rubble to reach them. They clung to Kelly's uniform with their small claws, crying in their clicking language, begging her to wake up. It took the emergency medical team nearly 20 minutes to extract Kelly from the debris without causing further injury. When they finally lifted her onto the medical transport, the cubs followed, still refusing to leave her side. Had to physically carry away, the smallest cub reaching back toward Kelly with desperate little hands. By then, every camera on the station had captured the footage. The human diplomat running toward danger while others fled. The impossible leap to save three alien children. The choice to shield them with her own body, taking impact after impact without hesitation. The security footage was already spreading through the station's networks. Within an hour, it would reach every council world. Within a day, the entire galaxy would know what happened in the plaza of Crimson Fang Station. Highclaw stood in the wreckage, watching the medical team rush Kelly away. Around him, his fellow council members were emerging from shelters and secured rooms. They had all seen what happened, every single one of them. "She is not one of ours," said quietly to the high claw beside him, a massive feline named. "She has no blood ties to those cubs, no debt to honor, no duty to protect them." "I know," replied, his voice rough with something that might have been awe. "She is small, weak by our standards. No claws, no fangs, no natural armor." "I know." "And yet she ran toward the danger. She chose to die so that cubs not her own might live." Was silent for a long moment. When he spoke, his words carried across the plaza, and every council member present heard them clearly. "Perhaps," he said slowly, "we have been asking the wrong questions about humans. We asked if they are predators. We should have been asking what kind of predators they are." Looked at the blood on the platform. Human blood spilled to protect young. He thought about the humans' strange custom of keeping other species as companions, their insistence on mercy as strength, their claim that choice was more important than instinct. "Call an emergency medical council," he ordered. "I want our best doctors working on the human, spare no resource." "It may already be too late," one of his aides said quietly. "The injuries are severe. Even if she survives, recovery could take months." "Then we wait months," said firmly. "That human saved 3 of our young. She bled for them, suffered for them. When she wakes, she will find that the Predator Council knows how to honor such a debt." If she wakes, he thought but did not say. The medical teams had not been optimistic. Human bodies were fragile compared to most council species. The damage Kelly had taken would have killed many beings instantly. That she had survived even this long was remarkable. Pain came first, sharp and bright and everywhere at once. Kelly tried to move and her body screamed in protest. She forced her eyes open and immediately regretted it. The lights were too bright, stabbing into her skull like needles. She squeezed them shut again and tried to remember where she was. The plaza, the explosion, the cubs. Kelly's eyes snapped open despite the pain. She tried to sit up and managed to lift her head perhaps an inch before agony forced her back down. Something was attached to her arm, feeding liquid into her veins. Machines beeped steadily nearby, their sounds unfamiliar but somehow soothing in their rhythm. A face appeared above her, scaled, reptilian, with kind eyes that reminded her of someone. The being spoke in a language of clicks and hisses that Kelly's translator turned into words. "Be still, Lieutenant Commander Hayes. You are safe. You are in the medical center." "The cubs," Kelly managed to croak. Her throat felt like sandpaper. "Are they?" "The young are unharmed, thanks to you." The doctor, Kelly realized it must be a doctor, adjusted something on one of the machines. "My name is, I have been overseeing your care for the past 3 days." 3 days, Kelly tried to process that. She had been unconscious for 3 days. "Your injuries were extensive," continued, his voice professionally calm. "Spinal trauma, punctured lung, fractured ribs, internal bleeding, severe lacerations. We performed 4 separate surgeries. Frankly, you should not be alive." "Sorry to disappoint," Kelly whispered, and was rewarded by a sound that might have been a laugh from the doctor. "On the contrary, you have surprised us all. Human resilience is more impressive than our medical databases suggested." Moved around the bed, checking readouts on displays Kelly could not see. "You will recover, though it will take time. The regeneration treatments are working, but human tissue heals differently than most species we treat." Kelly tried to take inventory of her body. Everything hurt, but it was a distant kind of pain, muffled by whatever drugs they were giving her. She could move her fingers, her toes. That was good. That meant her spine was probably intact despite the trauma. "How long until I can walk?" she asked. "Several weeks at minimum. Your body needs time to heal properly." Paused, then added more gently, "You took impacts that would have killed most beings instantly. You are fortunate to be breathing, much less considering when you will walk again." Before Kelly could respond, the door to her room slid open. The change in the hallway noise was immediate and shocking. The sound of voices, hundreds of them, filtered in before the door closed again. A figure entered, and Kelly recognized the crimson scales of High Claw. The leader of the Predator Council stood at the foot of her bed, looking down at her with an expression Kelly could not read. For a long moment, neither of them spoke. "The cubs," finally said, "are well. They have asked about you constantly. Their parents have been camped outside this medical center since you were brought in." "That's good," Kelly said. Speaking was getting easier, though her throat still burned. I'm glad they're safe. You ran toward collapsing structure to save them. It was not a question, but Kelly nodded anyway. I saw them falling. There wasn't time to think about it. No, agreed. There was not. You acted on instinct. The instinct to protect young that are not your own, young of a species not your own. Kelly did not know what to say to that, so she stayed quiet. Moved closer to the bed. Despite his size, he moved with careful grace as if afraid he might disturb her. In predator culture, protecting the young is sacred. It is the highest duty, but to protect young not of your blood, not of your pack, to risk your life for them without hesitation. This is the mark of a true apex predator. I'm not a predator, Kelly said softly. I'm just someone who couldn't watch children die. You are more predator than most of the beings who have sought council membership in the last century, replied. You have proven something we did not think possible. You have shown us that humans understand what truly matters. He performed a gesture Kelly had only seen in recordings, a deep bow that spoke of profound respect. Coming from High Claw, leader of the most powerful predator alliance in the galaxy, it was almost overwhelming. When you are recovered, said, straightening, we will speak again. The Council has much to discuss regarding humanity's place among us. But for now, rest, heal. You have earned it. After he left, Kelly lay in the quiet of the medical room and tried to understand what had just happened. The leader of the Predator Council had bowed to her. That seemed impossible. Surely the drugs were making her imagine things. But when returned to check on her, he confirmed it. You have become something of a legend in the 3 days you have been unconscious. The footage of your actions has spread throughout the station and beyond. Everyone has seen what you did. What I did was stupid, Kelly said. I should have found a safer way to help. There was no safer way. There was only your way, and it worked. Administered something through her IV line, and Kelly felt the pain begin to fade even more. You should know that there are many beings outside who wish to see you, to honor you. The corridor has been filled since the attack. The Cubs, Kelly said, feeling sleep pulling at her. Can they visit? I will arrange it, promised. But first you need rest. Your body is still healing. Kelly wanted to protest, but the drugs were already dragging her down into darkness. This time, at least, it was a gentle darkness, a healing sleep rather than the traumatic unconsciousness of injury. She woke again to find the room dimmer, the lights adjusted to something less painful, and she was not alone. 3 small shapes were pressed against the side of her bed, their scales reflecting the soft glow of the medical equipment. You are awake, said his voice trembling with emotion. You came back. Was crying, clear fluid running from her eyes. We thought you died. We thought we killed you. Hey now, Kelly managed, her voice still rough but stronger than before. You didn't kill me. You didn't do anything wrong. The smallest had climbed partially onto the bed despite his mother's attempts to stop him. You saved us. You fell on us and the bad things did not hurt us. Kelly lifted one hand slowly, fighting through the stiffness and pain. She touched the top of his head gently. Of course I did. I couldn't let you get hurt. But you are hurt instead, said. You took the pain that should have been ours. I'm bigger. I can handle it better than you could have. Kelly looked past the Cubs to Ware and stood near the door. Both parents had tears on their faces, too. Your mom and dad would do the same for you. That's what adults do. We protect the little ones. Not all adults, said, his voice thick. Not for young that are not their own. Then maybe they should, Kelly said simply. Approached the bed, moving with hesitant steps as if afraid Kelly might break. You gave us a debt we can never repay. You bled for our children, suffered for them. In our culture, this creates a bond that cannot be broken. I don't need payment, Kelly said. I just need to know they're safe and happy. They are safe because of you, said. And we will never forget it. Our clan will never forget it. When word reaches our home world, every will know your name and what you sacrificed. The Cubs stayed for another hour, sitting carefully near Kelly and telling her about everything that had happened while she slept. They spoke over each other in their excitement, their clicking voices blending together until Kelly could barely follow the conversation. But she did not mind. The sound of their voices, alive and well, was better than any medicine. After they left, exhaustion pulled Kelly back towards sleep. But before she drifted off, she saw something that made her pause. Through the small window in her door, she could see the corridor beyond. It was packed with beings. Some sat on the floor, others stood in patient groups. All of them were waiting. Kelly called weakly. The doctor appeared within moments. What do you need? Why are there so many people out there? Followed her gaze to the window. They are here to see you, to honor what you did. Many have been here since the attack, waiting for news of your recovery. But why, Kelly asked. I'm nobody important. You saved 3 cubs while your own body was being destroyed, said quietly. You showed more courage in those seconds than most beings show in a lifetime. You proved that humans understand sacrifice, duty, the protection of innocence. He paused, then added, You changed how the entire council views your species. Of course they wait to honor you. Kelly looked at the sea of faces beyond her door. Some were familiar species, others she had never seen before, but all of them were waiting for her. This is crazy, she whispered. This is respect, corrected, something your kind has earned. Over the next week, Kelly's condition improved steadily. She could sit up without help by the 4th day. By the 6th, she was taking short, painful walks around her room with assistance. The medical staff was amazed by her recovery speed. Apparently, human healing, when supported by advanced alien medicine, was more efficient than they had predicted. The visitors came in carefully managed groups. Council delegates who had dismissed humans as weak prey species now asked respectful questions about Earth and human culture. Military commanders wanted to know about human training and tactics. Scientists studied her healing process with fascination. But the most meaningful visits came from ordinary civilians, workers from the station who had seen the footage, parents who understood what it meant to protect children, beings who simply wanted to tell her that what she did mattered. The cubs visited every day. They would sit near her bed and talk about their lessons, their games, their dreams. Sometimes they helped her with physical therapy, their small claws steadying her when she wobbled on weak legs. They brought her drawings they had made, pictures of her standing tall and strong, a hero in their eyes. When you are better, said one afternoon, will you still be our friend? Of course, Kelly said without hesitation. Why would that change? Because you are important now, explained. Everyone knows you, everyone wants to talk to you, maybe you will not have time for us anymore. Kelly reached out and pulled the cub close, careful of her still healing ribs. I will always have time for you 3, you're my friends, that matters more than being important. Climbed up beside her. When we grow up, we want to be brave like you. You're already brave, Kelly said. You survived something terrifying, that takes courage. We survived because you saved us, insisted. And I'm alive because the doctors saved me, Kelly replied. We all need help sometimes, that's not weakness, that's life. 2 weeks after the attack, declared Kelly well enough to leave the medical center. She could walk without assistance now, though she tired easily and some movements still caused pain. The regeneration treatments had done their work. Her body bore scars, thin lines across her back and shoulder where the deepest injuries had been, but she was whole. The day she was discharged, Kelly discovered that the corridor outside was even more crowded than usual. As she stepped out, supported by Just in Case, a sound rose from the assembled beings. Not quite a cheer, but something deeper, a rumble of acknowledgement, respect. High Claw was there, along with several other council leaders. Lieutenant Commander Hayes, he said formally, the council requests your presence in 3 days' time. There is a matter we wish to discuss with you. Kelly nodded, not trusting her voice. She knew what this meant. The council was going to make their decision about humanity's membership application, and whatever they decided, her actions had influenced it. The family escorted her back to her quarters. The cubs walked on either side of her, their small forms like protective guards. Other beings moved aside to let them pass, many of them performing gestures of respect as Kelly walked by. When they reached her door, Kelly found her quarters had been cleaned and repaired. Someone had even brought her fresh clothes and supplies. A note on the table, written in careful human script, read simply, "Thank you for showing us what it means to be brave, from the beings of Crimson Fang Station." Kelly sat down carefully on her bed and looked at the 3 cubs watching her with their bright, trusting eyes. You know what's funny? She said. I came here to prove that humans deserve respect. I had presentations planned, arguments prepared, data to support our case, and in the end, none of that mattered. All that mattered was 3 kids who needed help. You are our hero, said firmly, forever and always. And you 3 are mine, Kelly replied, for being brave enough to survive, for being strong enough to keep holding on. Tilted his head thoughtfully. Do you think the council will accept humans now? I don't know, Kelly admitted. But whatever they decide, it will be based on truth. They've seen what humans really are, not stronger or faster or tougher than other species, just willing to stand up when it matters, willing to protect those who can't protect themselves. That sounds like predators to me, said. Kelly smiled, ruffling the scales on his head gently. You know what? Maybe you're right. Maybe being a predator is not about how sharp your claws are. Maybe it's about what you choose to do with your strength. The cubs stayed with her until their parents called them home for dinner. After they left, Kelly stood at her viewport and looked out at the purple nebula beyond. 3 days until the council meeting, 3 days to prepare for whatever judgment they would pass. But for the first time since arriving on Crimson Fang Station, Kelly was not afraid of their decision. She had done what she came to do, even if not in the way she had planned. She had shown them humanity's truth. Kelly stood before her mirror, adjusting her dress uniform for the 3rd time. The fabric pulled slightly across her shoulders where the scars were still healing. The medical team had done remarkable work, but her body would never be quite the same. She bore the marks of what had happened in the plaza, thin lines of scar tissue that would fade with time but never disappear completely. 3 days had passed since her discharge from the medical center. 3 days of rest, physical therapy, and an endless stream of messages from Earth. Her superiors were both proud and terrified. Proud of what she had accomplished, terrified of how she had done it. Diplomatic corps training did not typically include throwing yourself in front of collapsing structures. A knock at her door pulled her from her thoughts. When she opened it, she found the 3 cubs standing in the corridor. They were dressed in formal attire, small versions of their parents' ceremonial clothes. Their scales had been polished until they gleamed. "We wanted to see you before the council meeting," said. His voice was trying for confidence but came out nervous. "To wish you luck." Kelly knelt down, ignoring the protest from her still-healing ribs. "Thank you. That means a lot to me." Pressed something into Kelly's hand, a small carved stone shaped like a protective charm. "Mama said this is for courage. We want you to have it." "Are you scared?" asked, his blue-tinged scales rippling with concern. "Of what the council will say?" "A little," Kelly admitted. "But I'm also ready. Whatever they decide, I did my best. That's all anyone can do." The cubs hugged her carefully, mindful of her injuries. After they left, Kelly tucked the stone charm into her pocket and finished preparing. She braided her hair back in the military style, sharp and professional. When she looked in the mirror one final time, she saw a woman who had been tested and survived. A warrior, even if she had never thought of herself that way before. The walk to the council chamber felt longer than it should have. Beings stopped what they were doing to watch her pass. Some performed respectful gestures. Others simply stared, their expressions unreadable. Kelly kept her head high and her pace steady, even though her body wanted to tire after just a few minutes of walking. Station Commander met her at the chamber entrance. "Lieutenant Commander Hayes, the council is assembled and ready to hear you." "I'm ready," Kelly said, and was pleased that her voice did not shake. The chamber doors opened, and Kelly stepped into a space that took her breath away. The room was ancient, its walls carved with the histories of 1,000 predator species. Seating rose in tiered circles around a central floor where she would stand. Every seat was filled. Representatives from every major species in the Predator Alliance watched her enter. At the highest point of the chamber sat the High Claws themselves. Took his seat among them, his crimson scales bright against the dark stone. To his right sat the massive feline whose species had questioned human worth during Kelly's first presentation. To his left, beings from species Kelly had studied but never met in person. "Lieutenant Commander Kelly Hayes of Earth's voice echoed through the chamber. "You stand before the Galactic Predator Council to represent your species. 3 weeks ago, you came to us seeking membership. Today, we will give our answer." Kelly walked to the center of the floor, acutely aware of every eye upon her. She clasped her hands behind her back in formal military rest position and waited. "But first," continued, "the council would hear from you directly, not a prepared statement, not a formal presentation. We wish to understand what happened in the plaza, why you acted as you did." Kelly took a breath, gathering her thoughts. "I saw 3 children in danger. Everything else, my position, my mission, my own safety, all of that became irrelevant in that moment. All that mattered was getting them to safety." "You did not consider the risk to yourself?" asked a delegate from the lower tiers, a scaled being with multiple eyes. "I considered it," Kelly said honestly. "I knew I would likely be hurt, possibly killed. But if I did nothing and they died, I would have to live with that choice for the rest of my life. That seemed worse than any injury. These were not human young, another voice called out. You had no biological imperative to protect them, no pack bond, no duty. I had every duty, Kelly replied, her voice firm. They were children, that's all the duty I needed. Silence fell across the chamber. Kelly could feel the weight of their consideration, hundreds of predator minds trying to understand her logic. Highclaw leaned forward, his blue eyes piercing. 3 weeks ago, I questioned your species' claim to be predators. I said you were soft, weak, that keeping prey animals as companions proved you had forgotten the hunt. He paused, and Kelly thought she saw something like regret in his expression. I was wrong, not about what you are, but about what that means. He stood, his massive frame commanding attention. Since the attack, I have studied human history extensively, your species' development, your evolution, and I have learned something that shames me. Humans are perhaps the most dangerous predators in your corner of the galaxy, not because of your strength, but because of your persistence, your adaptability, your refusal to accept defeat. Gestured to a display that activated behind him, showing images from Earth's history. Humans tracking prey across vast distances. Humans surviving in environments that would kill most species. Humans protecting their young against impossible odds. But more than this, continued, humans have something we did not understand. You have weaponized compassion. You form bonds across species lines. You adopt the young of other creatures and raise them as your own. You fight to protect beings that offer you no benefit, no advantage. He looked directly at Kelly. This is not weakness. This is a different kind of strength, one that makes you more dangerous, not less. Another Highclaw stood, a reptilian being with dark green scales. The terrorists who attacked the plaza have been interrogated. They confessed to being members of the Purity Coalition, a faction that believed only traditional predators deserved council representation. They targeted the gathering specifically to eliminate species they considered unworthy. They failed, said quietly. They failed because a human, one of the species they most despised, proved to be more worthy than they could imagine. The green-scaled Highclaw continued. In the aftermath, we have seen something remarkable. The attack was meant to divide us, to reinforce old prejudices. Instead, it has unified the Council in ways we have not seen in generations. Because Lieutenant Commander Hayes showed us what truly defines a predator. Not teeth or claws or natural armor, but courage, sacrifice, the willingness to protect the helpless. Kelly felt her throat tighten with emotion but kept her expression neutral. Around the chamber, delegates were nodding, murmuring agreement. We have viewed the footage of the attack many times, said. We have analyzed every second, and each time we see the same thing, a small being with no natural weapons, facing certain death, choosing to act rather than flee, choosing others over self. This is the highest ideal of predator culture. This is what we aspire to, even if we often fall short. He stood, and the entire chamber fell silent. The Predator Council has debated for 3 weeks. We have argued and considered and examined every aspect of humanity's nature, and we have reached a unanimous decision. Kelly's heart hammered in her chest. This was it, the moment that would determine humanity's relationship with the wider galaxy. Humanity is granted full membership in the Galactic Predator Council, declared, his voice carrying to every corner of the chamber. Not as probationary members, not as junior partners, but as equals with all rights and responsibilities that entails. The chamber erupted, not with polite applause, but with the traditional predator roar of approval, a sound that shook the ancient stone walls. Kelly stood in the center of it all, overwhelmed by the noise and the moment. But was not finished. He raised one clawed hand, and the chamber quieted. Furthermore, the council has decided to bestow a rare honor. Lieutenant Commander Kelly Hayes stepped forward. Kelly walked to the base of the high-clawed dais, her legs moving automatically while her mind tried to process what was happening. The Crimson Claw is the highest honor the Predator Council can bestow, explained. It is given only to those who demonstrate the absolute pinnacle of predator virtue, courage beyond measure, sacrifice without hesitation, protection of the innocent at any cost. He descended from the dais, carrying a medallion on a crimson ribbon. In 3,000 years of Council history, the Crimson Claw has been awarded exactly 47 times. Never to a being from outside our traditional member species. Never to someone who had not yet earned their species admission to the Council. He held the medallion before him. It was carved from dark metal, shaped like a claw grasping a star. Kelly Hayes, you are the 48th recipient, the first human, the first to earn this honor through an act so selfless that it changed how an entire galactic alliance views an entire species. Kelly bowed her head and placed the ribbon around her neck. The weight of the medallion settled against her chest, surprisingly heavy for its size. But there is one more tradition, said, stepping back. The medal is presented by the Council, but it must be accepted from those you protected. The chamber doors opened, and 3 small figures entered, and walked across the floor with careful dignity, their parents behind them. The entire council watched as the 3 cubs approached Kelly. We practiced, whispered as they reached her. Mama taught us the words. Together, the 3 cubs spoke in their clicking language, the translator rendering their words into something formal and ancient. You bled so we might live. You suffered so we might be whole. You risked everything so we might have tomorrow. We accept you into our clan, now and forever. We name you Protector, Guardian, Shield. Kelly knelt down, bringing herself to their level. I accept, she said softly, and I promise to always be worthy of that trust. The cubs hugged her, all decorum forgotten, and the chamber erupted in approval once more. The ceremony continued with formal declarations and traditional rituals. Other species who had been under evaluation for membership were accepted as well, though Kelly barely heard their names. She stood with the crimson claw around her neck, and 3 cubs pressed against her sides, and tried to understand how her life had changed so completely in such a short time. After the formal session ended, delegates crowded forward to offer congratulations. Some wanted to discuss establishing diplomatic relations with Earth. Others wanted to hear the story firsthand. Kelly answered their questions politely but briefly, still processing everything that had happened. High Claw approached, his massive form cutting through the crowd easily. I owe you an apology, Lieutenant Commander. I judged your species harshly and unfairly. You judged us based on the information you had, Kelly said. I can't fault you for that. Perhaps, but I should have looked deeper, should have understood that there are many ways to be a predator, many ways to be strong. He extended one clawed hand. I hope that in time our species can learn from each other. Kelly shook his hand, feeling the careful control he exercised to avoid cutting her with his claws. I hope so too. As the crowd began to disperse, Kelly felt exhaustion creeping in. Her body was still healing, and the emotional weight of the ceremony was taking its toll. Noticed her flagging energy and quietly suggested they escort her back to her quarters. The walk back was slower than the walk there. Kelly's legs trembled with fatigue, but she refused to show weakness in front of the beings still watching from doorways and corridors. Only when she reached her quarters, and the door closed behind her, did she allow herself to slump against the wall. You need rest, said gently. You pushed yourself too hard today. It was worth it, Kelly replied. Did you see? Full membership, not probationary, not limited, full rights. Because of you, said proudly. Because you are brave and good. Kelly smiled at the cub. Because I did what anyone should do, the council just happened to be watching when I did it. After the family left, Kelly changed into comfortable clothes and sat by her viewport. Earth was too far away to see, but she looked in its direction anyway. Messages from home were already flooding in, her superiors demanding full reports, her family asking if she was truly all right. She would answer them all eventually. But for now, she just sat and watched the stars and thought about the strange path that had brought her here. She had come to Crimson Fang Station to prove humans deserved respect. She had succeeded, but not through careful diplomacy or clever arguments. She had succeeded by being human, by acting on instinct and compassion, by choosing others over self. The crimson claw lay on the table beside her, its dark metal gleaming in the starlight. Kelly picked it up, feeling its weight. 48 beings in 3,000 years, and she was one of them. Not because she was special, not because she was exceptionally brave or strong, but because she had seen children in danger and refused to look away. Kelly closed her eyes and felt the scars on her back pull slightly as she relaxed. They would heal in time. Some would fade, others would remain. Either way, she would carry them as a reminder, not of pain, but of the moment she learned what she was truly capable of. And tomorrow, she would begin the real work, building bridges between humanity and the Predator Council, opening doors for cooperation and exchange, making sure that her sacrifice meant something beyond just her own story. But that was tomorrow. Tonight, she simply sat in the quiet of her quarters. A human woman in an alien 6 months had passed since the attack on Crimson Fang Station. 6 months since Kelly Hayes became the first human to receive the Crimson Claw. 6 months since everything changed. Kelly stood at the observation deck of the Earth diplomatic vessel Horizon, watching as the ship approached Earth's orbit. Home. She had not seen it in over a year, and the sight of the blue planet hanging in space made her throat tight with emotion. She had left as a junior diplomat on a risky assignment. She was returning as humanity's first Predator Council representative, with responsibilities that still sometimes felt overwhelming. Behind her, 3 small shapes pressed against the viewport, their scales clicking softly against the glass. And had barely left her side in the month since the ceremony. Where Kelly went, they followed. And where the cubs went, their parents came too. "It is so blue," breathed her voice full of wonder. "I have seen the images, but they do not compare." "Wait until you see the oceans up close," Kelly said, smiling at the cubs' excitement. "They're even more beautiful than from space." The decision for the family to immigrate to Earth had not been easy, and had lives on their home world, family and friends they would be leaving behind. But the bond formed in the plaza that day was stronger than distance. The cubs had adopted Kelly into their clan in the most literal sense. Culture demanded that clans stay together, and so, after months of paperwork and preparation, the family was coming to Earth. "Incoming transmission from Earth Diplomatic Command," the ship's AI announced. "Secretary General Martinez wishes to speak with Representative Hayes." Kelly straightened her uniform and moved to the communication terminal. The Secretary General's face appeared on the screen, his expression warm but professional. "Representative Hayes, welcome home. I trust your journey was smooth." "Very smooth, sir. We should be landing within the hour." "Excellent. I should warn you that the reception is going to be larger than we initially planned. News of your arrival has spread, and there is significant public interest." Martinez smiled slightly. "You are something of a celebrity now, the woman who changed galactic politics by protecting 3 alien children." Kelly felt her face heat with embarrassment. "I just did what needed to be done, sir." "I know, that is exactly why people want to meet you." Martinez's expression grew more serious. "But we also need to discuss your new role in detail. Representing humanity on the Predator Council is a significant responsibility. There will be challenges ahead." "I understand, sir. I'm ready." After the transmission ended, Kelly returned to the viewport where the cubs still watched Earth grow larger, and had joined them, their larger forms flanking their young. "Your people will not fear us?" asked quietly. "We are predators, hunters. Our appearance can be frightening to species unused to us." "Some people might be nervous at first," Kelly admitted. "Humans aren't used to seeing aliens in person yet, but once they know your story, once they understand what you mean to me, they'll welcome you. I promise." Turned from the viewport, his blue-tinged scales rippling with concern. "What if they do not want us here? What if they think we are dangerous?" Kelly knelt down, bringing herself eye level with the smallest cub. "Then I will tell them the truth, that you 3 are the bravest, kindest children I have ever met, that your parents are people of honor who raised you well, that you are my family now, and anyone who wants to be my friend needs to be your friend too." "We are truly your family?" asked, his voice hopeful. "Not just in tradition, but in your heart." "Truly," Kelly confirmed. "You're stuck with me now." The cubs tackled her in a group hug, nearly knocking her over despite their attempts to be gentle. Kelly laughed and held them close, feeling the weight of the crimson claw against her chest. She wore it always now, a reminder of the moment that changed everything. The landing in New York was organized chaos. Diplomatic vessels did not typically receive this level of attention, but nothing about Kelly's situation was typical. As the Horizon settled onto the landing pad, Kelly could see the crowd gathered beyond the security barriers. Thousands of people, holding signs and banners, cheering even though they could not yet see who was disembarking. "There are so many," whispered, her small claws gripping Kelly's hand tightly. "They're excited to meet you," Kelly said, though her own nerves were making her stomach flutter. "Just stay close to me and your parents. Everything will be fine." Secretary General Martinez met them at the bottom of the ramp, along with a security detail and several other high-ranking officials. His eyes widened slightly when he saw the family, but his smile never wavered. "Representative Hayes, and you must be the famous cubs I have heard so much about." He bowed slightly in the gesture of respect. Welcome to Earth. We are honored to host you. Return the bow more deeply. The honor is ours, Secretary General. Your world has produced a being of exceptional courage and compassion. We are grateful to walk upon the same soil she calls home. The ceremony was mercifully brief. Kelly gave a short speech about the future of Human-Predator Council relations. Martinez spoke about Earth's commitment to peaceful cooperation. Then the real chaos began as reporters surged forward with questions. Representative Hayes, how does it feel to be home? What does this mean for Earth's future in the galaxy? Is it true you nearly died saving those children? Kelly answered what she could, keeping her responses simple and honest. Yes, she was glad to be home. Yes, humanity's acceptance into the Predator Council would open new opportunities for cooperation and growth. Yes, she had been severely injured, but excellent medical care had saved her life. One reporter pushed through to the front, her recording device held high. What about the Cubs? Why did they come to Earth? Before Kelly could answer, spoke up, his small voice made strong by the translator everyone had been given. We came because Kelly is our family. Where she goes, we go. This is the way. The crowd's reaction was immediate and overwhelming. The image of the small alien cub declaring loyalty to the human woman who had saved him spread across every network within minutes. By nightfall, it would be the most viewed clip in history. The motorcade took them to the diplomatic residences in upstate New York, away from the city's bustle. The family had been given quarters next to Kelly's, a suite designed to accommodate their needs. The designers had studied preferences, creating spaces that felt both alien and comfortable. As they settled in, explored the rooms with the careful attention of a mother ensuring her children's safety. She tested the temperature controls, examined the sleeping areas, checked the security systems. Finally satisfied, she turned to Kelly. It is good, different from home, but good. Your people have been thoughtful in their preparations. I told them how important you are to me, Kelly said simply. They wanted you to feel welcome. That evening, Kelly stood on the balcony of her quarters, looking out over the forested hills. The sun was setting, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink that Earth's atmosphere created so beautifully. She heard the door open behind her and was not surprised when the three cubs joined her. It is very green, observed, looking at the trees below. Our world has more rock and sand. I did not know plants could cover so much space. Earth has many different environments, Kelly explained. Forests like this, but also deserts and tundra and mountains. I'll show you all of them if you want. We want to see everything, declared. We want to learn everything about your world. Leaned against Kelly's leg, his weight warm and solid. Do you think the human cubs will like us? I think they'll be fascinated by you, Kelly said honestly. You'll probably have more friends than you know what to do with. The months that followed proved Kelly right. The family became minor celebrities, but not in the overwhelming way Kelly had feared. Instead, people were genuinely curious and kind. Schools invited them to speak about culture. Scientists wanted to study their unique physiology with the family's permission. Children wrote letters and drew pictures, wanting to be friends with the alien cubs who had traveled so far. Kelly's work as the Predator Council representative kept her busy. She spent half her time on Earth, meeting with government officials and corporate leaders about trade agreements and cultural exchanges. The other half she spent traveling, either to Crimson Fang Station or to other council worlds, building relationships and opening channels of communication. The cubs attended school now, a special program designed for the handful of alien children living on Earth. They learned human languages and customs alongside Earth subjects. In return, they taught their classmates about traditions and the wider galaxy. Kelly watched with pride as they adapted, becoming bridges between cultures in their own right. 1 year after the Plaza attack, the Predator Council held a memorial ceremony on Crimson Fang Station. Kelly attended with the family, returning to the place where everything had changed. The plaza had been rebuilt, stronger and more secure, but in the center a monument now stood. It was simple, made of dark stone that reflected the purple nebula above. Carved into its surface were the names of the 17 beings who had died in the attack, and below that, a scene rendered in perfect detail. A human woman, arms outstretched, shielding 3 small cubs from falling debris. The sculptor had captured the moment precisely. Kelly's face showed determination, not fear. The cubs beneath her were huddled close, protected. Below the image, Words were carved in dozens of languages, including English. Strength is not measured in size or weapons or natural armor. Strength is measured in the willingness to stand between the innocent and harm, no matter the cost. This monument honors all who stand. This monument remembers all who fell. May we learn from both their sacrifice and their courage. Kelly stood before the monument for a long time, the cubs pressed against her sides, their parents behind them. Around the plaza, other beings had gathered, silent and respectful. Some left flowers, others small tokens. All of them remembered. High Claw approached, his crimson scales dulled slightly with age, but his bearing still proud. It is a good monument. It tells the truth of what happened here. They're all remembered, Kelly said quietly, looking at the names of the dead. That's what matters. They shouldn't be forgotten. None of them will be, especially not you, gestured to the carved image. This is how the galaxy will remember this day, not the attack, not the terrorists, but the moment when a human showed us what we could be. I was just in the right place at the right time, Kelly said, the same response she always gave. No, replied firmly. You were the right person, that is why it mattered. The ceremony included speeches from council leaders and representatives from the species who had lost people in the attack. Each one spoke about unity and strength, and the bonds that connected all civilized beings. But the most powerful moment came when the three cubs stepped forward to speak. They had prepared their words carefully, practicing for weeks. Standing before the entire council, they told their story, the fear they had felt, the moment they thought they would die, the impossible sight of a human running toward them instead of away, the feeling of being caught, thrown to safety, protected by a body that should not have been strong enough. We were saved by someone who had no reason to save us, said, his voice steady. Someone smaller and weaker than many beings here, but someone with a heart strong enough to choose our lives over her own. We will never forget that. We will spend our lives trying to be worthy of that gift. Kelly had not cried through any of the ceremony until that moment. But hearing the cubs speak, seeing how much they had grown and matured, understanding the weight of responsibility they felt, it broke through her careful control. Tears ran down her face, and she did not bother to hide them. After the ceremony, there was a reception in the council chambers. Delegates from across the galaxy mingled, discussing trade and politics and cultural exchange. Kelly moved through the crowd, accepting congratulations and well wishes, discussing the next phase of human integration into council affairs. But she kept one eye on the cubs, watching as they navigated the adult world with growing confidence. They were not the frightened children she had saved anymore. They were becoming something more. Ambassadors in their own right, representatives of a new generation that would grow up knowing cooperation instead of division. Late in the evening, Kelly found herself back at the monument. The plaza was quieter now, most of the crowd having moved to the reception. She stood before her carved image and thought about the path that had brought her here. You look thoughtful, a voice said behind her. Kelly turned to find High Claw, the massive feline who had once questioned human worth. Just reflecting. A year ago, I was trying so hard to prove humanity deserved respect. I had arguments and data and presentations. None of it mattered compared to one moment of action. That is the nature of truth, said, moving to stand beside her. Words are easy to doubt. Actions cannot be. He looked up at the carved scene. You changed the council with that action, changed how we view strength, changed what we value in potential allies. Was it worth it? Kelly asked. The other species who were accepted, would they have been anyway? Some perhaps, others no. Your actions opened doors that had been closed. Your sacrifice made us question assumptions we had held for. Blue eyes gleamed in the dim light. The galaxy is different now because you refused to let 3 children die. That is a legacy worth having. Kelly looked down at the crimson claw around her neck. She wore it every day, even when regulations did not require it. It had become a part of her, a reminder of who she had chosen to be in that crucial moment. I would do it again, she said quietly, every time without hesitation. I know, replied. That is why you wear that medal. That is why we bow when you pass, not because of what you did once, but because of who you are always. The cubs found her eventually, as they always did. They were tired from the long day, their scales dulled from exhaustion. Kelly gathered them close, feeling their weight against her, solid and real and alive. Can we go home now? Asked, his voice small. Back to Earth. Yes, Kelly said. Let's go home. The journey back to Earth was quieter than the trip to the station. The cubs slept most of the way, curled together in a pile of scales and gentle breathing. Kelly worked on reports and reviewed proposals for upcoming council sessions, and talked quietly about their new life, about the friends they had made among humans, about how different their children's future would be from the one they had imagined. When Earth came into view again, Kelly felt the same surge of emotion she had the first time. Home. Not just for her anymore, but for the family who had chosen to make it their home too. They landed in the evening, and instead of crowds, they found a quiet welcome. Kelly's family was there, her mother and father and brothers who had traveled from across the country to see her. They embraced her carefully, mindful of her still-present scars, asking 1,000 questions about the ceremony and the council and her health. And they welcomed the family without hesitation, treating the cubs with the gentle kindness reserved for all children, alien or not. Kelly's mother knelt down to speak with, complimenting her scales. Kelly's father shook hand with respectful formality, thanking him for trusting Earth with his family. In that moment, watching her two families meet and blend, Kelly understood what she had accomplished. Not just political acceptance, not just diplomatic success, but genuine connection. The kind of bond that crossed species and culture and all the barriers that might have kept them apart. That night, Kelly sat in her quarters with the crimson claw on the table before her. She thought about the 47 beings who had earned this honor before her. Warriors and leaders and heroes whose names were written in council history. She wondered if any of them had felt as undeserving as she sometimes did. But then she thought about 3 small cubs sleeping safely in the next room. She thought about a galaxy learning to value compassion alongside strength. She thought about a future where human children and children could play together without fear or suspicion. Maybe she had earned this medal after all, not through strength or skill or natural ability, but through the simple act of choosing others over self, through refusing to look away when help was needed, through being willing to bleed so that others might live. Kelly picked up the crimson claw and placed it around her neck once more. Tomorrow, there would be more work, more council sessions, more diplomatic negotiations, more bridges to build between humanity and the wider galaxy. But tonight she was home, with family both human and, with scars that told a story worth telling, with a future that looked brighter than she had ever imagined. She had taken Shrapnel to save 3 cubs. She had woken to find the Predator Council bowing in awe. And in doing so, she had changed not just her own destiny, but the destiny of her entire species. It was, Kelly thought as she turned off the lights and prepared for sleep, a pretty good outcome for someone who had just been trying to keep 3 kids from getting hurt. Sometimes, the simplest choices lead to the most profound changes. And sometimes, being human, with all its flaws and limitations, is exactly enough. More than enough. Everything necessary. Wearing a medal that represented everything her species aspired to be. Brave, compassionate, willing to stand up when it mattered most. And finally, undeniably accepted. Whatever came next, she would face it the same way she had faced that falling beam. Head on, without hesitation, doing what needed to be done. Because that was what humans did. They stood up. They protected. They sacrificed when necessary, and they never, ever abandoned those who needed help. Even if it cost them everything. In the medical center 3 levels below, doctors from a dozen species worked frantically over Kelly's broken body. They repaired torn organs, sealed bleeding vessels, stabilized fractures. The human's resilience surprised them. She should have been dead. By every medical standard they knew, her injuries were fatal. But somehow, impossibly, Kelly Hayes held on to life with the same stubborn determination she had shown in protecting those cubs. Outside the medical center, a vigil began. The family arrived first and with their 3 cubs. They sat in the waiting area, refusing to leave. Others joined them. Then members of other species, beings who had watched the footage, beings who understood what they had witnessed. By dawn, hundreds of aliens filled the corridor outside the medical center. They waited in silence, these predators and hunters. They waited to see if the small human who had shown them the true meaning of courage would live to see another day. "We told all our friends that we know the human," added proudly. "They are jealous." Kelly felt a knot of anxiety in her stomach. She had not considered that the cubs would be there. The thought of disappointing them somehow felt worse than failing in front of the council. "I'll do my best," she promised. But you have to promise me something too. Stay close to your parents, all right? Big gatherings can be chaotic. We promise, all three cubs said together, though crossed his small arms in a way that suggested he did not like being told to be careful. Kelly watched them leave, their tails swishing with excitement. She looked at her presentation materials one more time, making tiny adjustments that probably did not matter. Tomorrow would determine whether the last 3 months of struggle had been worth it. Tomorrow, the Predator Council would judge whether humanity deserved a place among them. She just wished she could shake the feeling that something was about to go terribly wrong.